Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Ms. Burerkle, the Vice Chair of the Subcommittee on Terrorism, Nonproliferation, and Trade, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And thank you again for being here this morning, Mr. Steinberg. I want to start out my questions first with Pan Am 103 and what our chairwoman mentioned at the beginning of this hearing, and that is our concern. I'm sure you're well aware of 38 students from Syracuse University were on
Indeed.
that flight.
Yes.
And about a month ago, we had the opportunity to interview Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and I asked her that question: what will this administration do to be sure that we are collecting evidence and that we will prosecute the parties responsible, which we have good reason to believe is Mr. Gaddafi? And I would encourage you, strongly encourage you in this administration to pursue that. There are so many families who are still waiting for closure. They have not had this one final piece put into place, and so on their behalf, we implore this administration. We now have a good opportunity with the defection of the foreign minister yesterday to take this opportunity to ask questions and to find out so we can prosecute Mr. Gaddafi for this heinous, heinous crime.
Congresswoman, I know you know how strongly Secretary Clinton feels about this too, and working with the Justice Department and others, it's something that we definitely intend to pursue.
Thank you. Beyond that now, I want to talk a little bit. We've heard so much about ground troops, and right now we're not, you've mentioned that we're not going to pursue that. But you did mention in the UN resolution occupation forces, and you sort of touched on that but didn't really elaborate on that. Can you take that phrase out of the UN resolution and expand for us what that means, and whether or not, because we've just seen, we witnessed this administration unilaterally applying authority for the missiles, now whether or not any further steps would be required by this administration to commit ground troops, and if not, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Obviously, for us, the issue of precisely what would constitute an occupation force doesn't really arise since the President has made a policy decision that he does not intend to send ground troops. So I think if there were an intention or somehow that things would change, which I have absolutely no reason to expect, I think the President could not have been clear about it. Obviously, that's something that we would welcome a conversation with Congress about. But I find it very difficult to imagine, given the strong position the President has taken on that issue is likely to arise.
What does the UN resolution call for with regards to this occupation forces?
It does not authorize. It doesn't call for any. It does not authorize an occupation force. So what it says is it's a limit. It says all necessary means to help the civilians, but it does not authorize an occupation. So it's just a limit on what is otherwise a very broad grant of authority to the international community to use military force.
I think the concern of this Congress is that the policies have been so vague in our mission and our goal and what are we doing there and what is the end game, that we were concerned that now committing ground troops there may be something, again, that goes, it's not brought to Congress and it's not brought to the American people. And I think that is the concern here, that this whole operation escalates. We're in this position without Congress's consent and without the consent of the American people. As my colleague Mr. Pence mentioned, it was a unilateral authority that got us into this. So now how do we prevent any further commitment of troops or from our country?
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. I'd say first, and I haven't mentioned this before, but we have had extensive, not only have we had consensus conversation with Congress, but there have been significant expressions of support, including by the other body on this issue. The other thing I would say is the President, I think, could not have been clearer about ground troops, and more importantly, what you're seeing is already a reduction in our military activities there. As we move forward with this transition, the United States is stepping back from the front line. We are focusing on providing support on things like intelligence and those kinds of things. So I think the President has lived up to his commitment to the American people and to the Congress that this is a limited effort, that we are reducing our scope, and far from moving in the direction that I know you're concerned about, we're moving actually in the other direction, which is to reduce the U.S. military role here.
Can you assure this Congress that the President would not commit ground troops without consenting and having a conversation with the Congress?
At this point, Congressman, I can only say that the President has made clear to all of us in the administration that he has no intention of doing that.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you.